Kirby Star Allies was a game in the Kirby franchise released in 2018. I'm a massive fan of Kirby, but this is actually a game I don't really like. Compared to the rest of the series, it feels extremely generic and it doesn't try to do too much new. It is especially similar to the 3 games that precede it, because the games all share abilities which have the same movesets between games, similar modes, and Kirby controls identically in each game. However, the difference with those games is that I feel like they had new ideas such as the robot and Planet Robot, and actually good level design with unique worlds and bosses to back things up. The main 2 gimmicks in this game are the ability to mix abilities together and the ability to make enemies into star allies. The friend mechanic is very similar to Kirby Superstar, but instead of just one friend, you can have a bunch of smiling friends. This is because the game is heavily built around multiplayer. An incredible part about this game is that there is no online multiplayer. Playing this game for this video, I played in single player, and I also try to limit myself when using the friend ability to only have one ally with me, because I remember the mechanic being super broken, at least in the campaign mode, so I wanted to try and be fair and not break the game by having a bunch of computers helping me. I understand that it isn't fair to judge a multiplayer game based on just a single player experience, but I think a lot of my critiques still hold true because they are independent of how many people are playing. The other major gimmick is the ability to mix copy abilities together. While this might sound similar to the ability mixing mechanic in Kirby 64, it actually works completely differently. In 64, you can mix any 2 abilities and get a new ability, which helps the fact that every ability in that game has like one move. In Kirby Star Allies, the base abilities are super fleshed out with a bunch of moves, which are all just from the old games, and some, such as weapon abilities, can be mixed with elemental abilities to get unique effects. This was one of my favorite parts about the game because it was fun to see how the ability would get changed up. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like they're super different, but the differences can be pretty cool, and I think there are enough elements to keep things interesting. The game has really good music. I especially like the new songs made for the game. I think they are really underrated. I think the game visually looks super nice, although it has 2 issues. The locations in the game feel super generic. Like, they look pretty, but they have as much going on as a New Super Mario Bros. Location. And the biggest issue is the frame rate. It's kind of it might run at 30 FPS or it might not a game. Like, this isn't the most insane game when it comes to graphics, and the 3DS Kirby games were able to run at 60 FPS. Even worse is that there are areas in the game where it will lag consistently. Like, what were they thinking? It's almost like this was some kind of rush game to meet a deadline so the Switch could have a game ready for the time period of whenever this game released. I mean, this game came out 2 years after the previous game, which I think explains why there isn't much new here. Updates were added after the game dropped for free, which added more characters to play as and even a brand new mode, but I feel like that's basically just an apology because the amount of new content in the base game amounts to an IOU. But now the game is as it is, and while there are some things I do like about the game, I think there's just too much generic slop that weighs it down. The story mode. The campaign mode in this game is extremely boring and uninteresting. It is split up into 4 worlds, but none of them really have anything unique going on and kind of just end up feeling bland. The first world is a basic grass world, like it is just as generic as the first world in a New Super Mario Bros. Game. While other Kirby games that released in the years around this game also start with a grass area, they at least try to shake things up, like with a train level in Planet Robot or a mall level in Forgotten Land. But in this game, things start as crazy as fighting Wispy Woods in an extremely unoriginal fight in comparison to some of his previous fights. Like, his big attack is just jumping into the middle of the screen. I'll talk more about the bosses when I talk about the arena mode, but the main issue with them in the story mode is that there are relatively few bosses and there are a lot of refights. Especially for the mini bosses, considering there are only 5 of them, and besides one, all of them are old. The second world is a lot more varied in the areas the players traverse, but they hardly try to be more than a surface level idea, like a snow or beach location. Also, the world map just reminds me of Return to Dreamland, which just makes me wish I was playing that instead. The level design in this game has 3 big issues in my opinion: the terrain, the bonus rooms, and the enemies. In regards to the terrain, it just feels like not much is happening, and the layouts for all the levels feel pretty basic. I understand that the game had to accommodate for having 4 people go through the levels, but also I feel like Kirby Return to Dreamland had decent levels and it supported 4 players. Also, on the topic of multiplayer, there are these random sections throughout the campaign where you split up from your allies and have to do these waiting for the other player to hit a button screens. Like, maybe these could have been okay if there was something to do while the other player was hitting the button, but most of the time you're just twiddling your thumbs. Just not many interesting mechanics or gimmicks in any of the levels to help them stand out. Another big issue is the bonus rooms because the game makes it extremely obvious what to do. There are these hints that tell you the exact solution to the puzzle, and like, you can turn them off, but they are on by default, and I didn't realize that you could turn them off until near the end of the game. Even without these hints though, it still feels extremely easy because usually most if not all the copy abilities you need to solve the puzzle are in the room. I think it would have been better if you would have had to search the area outside of the door to find the copy abilities and maybe actually require the player to think about what the solution might be as opposed to just handing it out like candy. The rewards you get from the bonus rooms aren't much. All you can get is 1-up stars, which help you get 1-ups, and puzzle pieces, which help unlock artwork, which is cool, but also it takes so many puzzle pieces to fill out a set. Like, bro, I can just look up the artwork, stop gatekeeping so hard. To be fair, there are also big switches you can find which unlock new levels or areas where you can get dream friends. I'll talk more about them later. But I prefer the method of unlocking bonus levels in the 3DS Kirby games because you have to find all the collectibles in a given world to unlock one, as opposed to just solving one really easy puzzle in this game. I haven't browed the copy abilities yet, but yeah, they are pretty cool, and I like how some copy abilities can mix with different elements, such as whip.
So what makes this specific one worth talking about? Well, for one, it's made by Cowboy.
I kind of wish more of the old abilities were changed up a bit, like maybe having a new move or two without mixing abilities. Because for the most part, they are identical to how they were in Planet Robot, and Triple Deluxe, and Return to Dreamland, and similar to Superstar. Some of the old abilities coming back that haven't been in Kirby games for a while were cool. I like how they gave cleaning a unique moveset. The two brand new abilities are also fun, especially Spider. They absolutely have that fit on. Did you know that when they were making this game, they actually brought in real spiders to research their behavior to find inspiration for the Spider copy ability? I actually just made that up, but it would be cool if it was true. The final main issue with the level design for me is the enemy variety. This also conveniently segues into the third world because this one enemy gets introduced here that's essentially just a reskin Wallaby, and it's one of the few new ones in the whole game. Most of the enemies you battle are ones that have been in previous Kirby games, some since like the Game Boy and NES. And the enemy pool doesn't feel that big, so it just feels repetitive seeing the same creatures over and over again. I think it is cool how you can turn the more complex ability enemies into allies, but I also think that maybe it could have been made a little bit more difficult to do so, given the fact that it kind of just turns enemies into resources where you can just make things easier by turning them into allies to help play. Maybe it could have helped if there were like more stronger enemies that you can't turn into friends. The third world isn't anything crazy, but I think it's kind of lame how the star that takes you between the background and foreground of levels in the 3DS games is only here as an element in the world map. I think it would have been neat to see in the main levels, especially from a multiplayer context, because it could have been fun to have like a background part of the level that players could split up and go to while other players stay on the main path. The final world of the game is my favorite, but it still isn't good. I appreciate how you can choose to any level in whatever order you want, kind of like that one mode from Kirby Superstar. The retroness is off the charts. The levels aren't that bad and they have their moments, but for some reason this world does this thing where after you beat a level, you then have to fight a boss, many of which are refights, in its own separate level. Like, why not just put the boss at the end of the level? It feels like unnecessary padding. There is this really cool level you unlock after beating the game and for beating all the levels, and it's like really cool because it really makes you feel retro. There's also this one level where you do a refight of each mini-boss, and I think it's cool how the copies are monochrome. I don't really like the story in this game because there isn't much context given. Like for a couple of bosses, after fighting them, we find a heart, and then it just flies away, and we have to chase after it. So everything just kind of feels aimless. The game really doesn't bother to explain much. Like throughout the campaign, we meet the three mage sisters, who do have dialogue, but never explain or give any reasoning behind why they're trying to summon some evil creature. Maybe the dialogue could have at least included some funny jokes, like Stranger Things.
Yes, the number that I gave you, yes. 6767.
Most of the lore in this game is hidden in the pause screen, which I don't really like because they only show up during boss fights. Like, it kind of feels stupid to have the boss fight be going on with the music and everything and just having to stop and pause the game to try and get any context. I much prefer how it is handled in Kirby Forgotten Land because the pause screen lore dumps were moved to being little trophy descriptions, which I feel like works better because it makes more sense to put the text in a part of the game where you aren't doing much. Spoilers for the final boss. I think the first couple of phases are pretty uninteresting, but there is this actually really interesting 3D part which isn't that difficult, but the game does gain some aura here. The axe, formerly known as Twitter attack, is pretty cool. I like how the name for the chapter of the final fight is called Kirby Star Allies. Like, yeah, it really does feel like everything's coming together. After a triple boost to defeat the boss, the fight ends, and so does the campaign mode. Honestly, this mode was pretty bad. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome in terms of length, but it was never welcome to begin with. None of the levels are really anything special, and the game just felt boring to play through. All the modes I'm going to talk about now are unlocked after the campaign mode, so spoiler warning. Alright, time for the next mode.
Guest star, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, star allies, go. Mode.
This mode is actually really similar to the other modes in the Kirby series, like the Meta Nightmare and DD Tour, where you just replay the game in a truncated way. I like how you have to stick with an ability throughout the whole mode, although you could just directly take control over an ally if you wanted to. I personally went with River's Cuomo because I thought that the spider ability was fun, and it's also like new to this game. I'm sorry, that last joke wasn't very good. I'll go away. I like how the levels in this mode put a stronger focus on combat. The sections where you fight enemies are a nice change of pace. The mode isn't too bad, but it's mainly bogged down by the fact that you are mostly playing through the game again with the same uninteresting levels, albeit with some tweaks, and also with much of the levels cut down. And also some parts honestly feel like they could have been cut out, like the stupid block section. But yeah, the sections in this mode are designed to be pretty short, like the earlier parts can be completed in 7 minutes. The mode ends with this new boss, Morpho Knight, keeping a tradition with the fact that the Kirby series loves making new, different Meta Knights. This one is honestly pretty sick and has a ton of aura. I like his design, I think his attacks are cool. It just sucks that in this mode he is incredibly easy to fight. He really doesn't get to shine fully until the arena. Another cool thing about this mode is how you get to unlock playing through it as the Dream Friend characters. Though it kind of sucks that you have to play through it once as one of the normal basic characters. Dream Friends are honestly one of the best parts of the entire game. They are old Kirby characters given unique movesets, and it's fun to play as them, especially because they feel super different. But my main question is, why limit the Dream Friends to just Kirby characters? Why not add, say, Big Boss? The Dream Friends are playable in all the modes, including the campaign, and honestly, they were one of the only saving graces of that mode. They help give the game way more variety. I like the mech that Susie has. I think Rick, Kine, and Ku have a great moveset, with the player transforming into one of them depending on if they are in the land, water, or air. But my favorite was by far Marks. I recently just played through Kirby Superstar Ultra, and fighting against Marks really helped me appreciate his moveset a lot here. I like how he can travel on this ball and even use it as an attack, but by far my favorite part was how he mixed with different element copy abilities. Some of the other friends can mix with them, like Dark Meta and Susie, and Rick, but like, why does he do this? But the reason I specifically really like how Mark's moveset changes with the different copy abilities is because he gets more specific moveset changes which reference his boss in Kirby Superstar. I also like how you can have him help Kirby throughout the main campaign, like nah, they acting like nothing even happened. Back to talking about the mode. When you play through it as a Dream character, you will actually get some unique screens with that character. I played through it as Marks, and while the new rooms were cool, there weren't that many. I personally didn't feel like it justified playing through the whole game again. But yeah, the mode isn't bad and is some good mindless fun attempts. Although there was this weird question mark character. You'll need to unlock this character before proceeding. I feel like this is a reference to something, I'm just not sure what. The ultimate choice. Like guest star question mark Star Allies Go, this mode is also based on a previous mode in the Kirby series, that being the arena and also the true arena. This mode is a boss rush of all the previous bosses where you have to manage the health resources you are given at the start in order to survive to the end. Random thought, but I like how there are different types of food you can eat in this game. Like burgers, although I don't think you can get any in this mode. Before I talk about the bosses, I think this mode has two important fundamental issues. The most annoying thing about this mode is that in order to play the most difficult mode, you have to play through the mode 3 times on earlier difficulties. In previous Kirby games, you would have had to play through the basic arena in order to unlock the challenge and true arena, which would take the forms of the bosses from the extra modes. I think that worked fine because while it was kind of annoying to be required to play the earlier arena, it is nice to have as an option. I do like the variety and difficulty settings in the ultimate choice, but I think requiring 3 playthroughs in the mode to even unlock the true challenge is just padding. The other thing I don't like is how you can't switch your ability as you play through the mode while playing as Kirby, except if you choose to not have an ability beforehand. I feel like this doesn't make much sense because you have the ability to play as the friend version of each ability, which can't change their ability. And in previous Kirby games, in the room before bosses, you had the option to change to a random ability. I also think it would have been cool if you could have the option to mix certain abilities together in the character select screen without having to have another friend fight in the arena. The first 3 playthroughs of the ultimate choice weren't that bad for me, and I was able to clear them all first try. However, the most difficult version was the exact opposite in terms of difficulty. The bosses in this mode are based on another mode you have to play before you get to play this difficulty, which I'll get to talking about after this mode. These bosses are actually pretty challenging and can be fun to fight. You can choose to make this mode a lot easier by playing as one of the Dream Friends who have Brawl Meta Knight tier abilities, or by using Amiibo to get more health. I do appreciate that these are options, but I try to limit myself to just using a default ability in order to challenge myself and to fully understand how the mode works. I use Spider because I think it is a fun ability, and while I did try a very limited amount of other abilities, I found that Spider would be the easiest, especially because it has a shield that can cheese bosses because it doesn't take any damage. Yes, even despite this, I found the mode challenging. I swear I'm not bad at games. The bosses themselves are honestly not that varied. You refight plenty of bosses from past Kirby games, and also the 3 Mage Sister fights are pretty similar to each other. That part also isn't helped by the fact that the order is the exact same every single time for the bosses you fight. And with the 3 Mage Sisters, they are all fought one battle after another. On one hand, I understand that the ultimate choice was probably structured like this to help players plan out a route to complete the mode, but as someone who played this mode many times, I just found it annoying. Another decision about this mode that I found weird was that each, or at least most, maybe some don't do this, but I'm not sure, of the bosses do the exact same attacks in the same order every time you play this mode. Just helps make the mode feel repetitive. Also, this might seem like a small complaint, but I hate how you have to run to the other side of the screen to start the boss for every single fight. Like, it might seem like a small issue, but trust me, the time adds up. Despite these issues, I actually did really like the challenge of the bosses, and I thought it was fun figuring out how to optimize fighting the bosses. Even some of the stupid mini-bosses from the campaign mode were a struggle here. In particular, the final boss is a standout. The 3D phase is actually a little challenging, and I like how Magolor's crown from Return to Dreamland gets used here. And the final phase was really cool, one because the colors for each of the phases look super nice, and also due to this beam attack which you can't shield, so it actually makes the boss challenging. Especially because you need to survive 3 phases within the same fight to get to the final phase. While the Ultimate Choice has a lot of issues, I think it was a pretty good mode, especially if played on the highest difficulty. It is my second favorite mode in the whole game. Before I'm done talking about this mode, I just want to shout out the channel Kawayuki. They make super interesting videos about how well each of the copy abilities do in this mode, and they were an inspiration as to why I even replayed the game and made a video about it. Here is another dimension. This is by far my favorite mode as it leads heavily into the strengths of the game and improves upon the level design. This mode came out with the final update of the game 8 months after release, and I feel like with just the 3 modes I previously covered, there was not enough content to justify a full price release. Like, yes, the guest star question mark star always go and ultimate choice modes are nice, but they also heavily reuse content from the campaign mode. It is good that this mode is free, but the context of its release just kind of makes me feel like the base game was rushed out. The mode is structured into 4 main sections, with each being decently long levels, ending with a remix boss fight, and then a 5th section which is just the final boss of the mode. The levels in this mode work a lot better than the campaign mode, which I feel like is due to the secret hearts you can collect through finding secrets or using each Dream Friends moveset to solve puzzles. Some of the hearts are hidden really well, and they reward exploration well. Another thing I really like about these levels is how each Dream Friend gets their own dedicated section throughout the mode, and they help keep things super varied. Like, there's one part where you play as Adeline and have to solve these puzzles by breaking blocks. It was a cool retro reference. The levels also take advantage of the ability mixing perfectly well, in my opinion. There are also these parts of each level where you are required to have 4 characters, and then they transform into one of 4 different forms. 2 of which, the circle and the train, are fairly similar. You move forward automatically and just have to jump, and I don't really like them because they aren't all that interesting gameplay wise. I like the other 2, that being the bridge because the puzzles involving it are really unique, and especially the star one because it feels really fleshed out and the shoot 'em up gameplay is pretty fun. In the campaign mode, and by extension guest star star always go, these sections weren't really much and just kind of felt like filler, except for the star form in the campaign. And here's another dimension. I feel like they really use each of these forms to their fullest potential, and even the circle and train forms are right here. There's this one specific moment in one of the levels where you are in the circle form, and if you miss this jump, you don't get the heart. Now, given the fact that I was trying to collect every single heart just out of love of the game, I replayed the entire section, which takes a long time because you can't change the speed, but the best part is that in order to reset the room, you need to die to this one ninja enemy, and the cherry on top is that its attack is this stupid animation. Honestly, I just respect this. Like, they could have just put a bottomless pit here, but they designed it like this intentionally. Also, the transformations with all the friends are weird to me in a multiplayer context because for all the forms, besides the star form, all the players share control over the actions performed, kind of like Plessy from Mario 3D World. Like, from a design perspective, it just seems weird to me to require having all players and not taking advantage of the multiplayer in any way. The remix bosses in this mode were actually really cool and even have some new attacks. They were a little challenging, like I actually died a couple of times to them. It's pretty crazy. Even the mini bosses weren't bad here because they actually bothered to change up the terrain where you fight them, which I feel like would have helped a lot in the story mode, especially with how many times that you fight them. The final bosses mode was also really good. I liked how the final phase is against all 3 mage sisters. Apparently there's a different ending to the mode if you don't collect enough hearts, but I'm so good that I didn't get to see it. I do have some issues with this mode, but they don't hurt the mode too much. The story was definitely presented pretty poorly. Like, you were just kind of thrown into this mode without any context, and then there aren't any cutscenes or any dialogue until the final boss. But still, much isn't really explained. My bad, let me study up on the pause description so hopefully I can get what's going on. Visually, the mode isn't bad. I really like how things look, but every level looks nearly identical. Maybe they could have changed the colors or something. But the biggest issue with this mode is the music. The music in this mode isn't bad, but there isn't a lot of it, which leads to it feeling repetitive. The game already uses music from older Kirby games in these levels, so I don't get why they wouldn't add more songs from the old games, especially because there's a lot to choose from. That is the only big issue I have with this mode. This mode is incredible and literally feels like they took everything that was good and interesting from the new Super Mario Bros. Story mode in order to build a mode worth playing. Also in the credits for this mode, you get to fight Marks, like someone was definitely the favorite child. Bro, why couldn't the rest of this game be this peak? I just want to give my thoughts about some other random things about the game, given that I've talked about all the main modes. I really like the title screen and mode select screen in this game. All the characters running around and interacting is nice. There are 2 lackluster minigames which I was personally disappointed by, considering that while the bonus games in the 3DS games weren't the most insane things ever, they were pretty fun and had some depth to them. You can watch the very few movies, aka cutscenes from the game.
Let's make a movie.
Unfortunately, you cannot watch Pizza Movie though. Overall, I did not really like Kirby Star Allies. I feel like Kirby in the Forgotten Land improved upon a lot of the game's issues by genuinely trying to be more original. Obviously, the fact that it is the first 3D Kirby platformer helps, but it's not just copying everything old from the Kirby games and calling it a day. Not everything about Kirby Star Allies is awful, and I feel like the good qualities really shine in the Heroes in Another Dimension mode, but the story mode is so awful that I can understand someone not wanting to play any more of the game, or wanting to return to the game 8 months after release, which was the context that Heroes in Another Dimension released under. There's so many better Kirby games to play, better 2D or 3D platformers to play, and while I didn't play the game in multiplayer, I would imagine that the Kirby's Return to Dreamland remake on Switch is a better multiplayer experience, considering the levels in Return to Dreamland were better than this game, and also the fact that it has way more bonus multiplayer games to play. Although that game doesn't have online multiplayer either. There are Kirby games only on the eShop with online, but not Return nor Star Allies. Nintendo is frustratingly mid. I will never play one of their games ever again. L Game, thanks for watching.